My next guest created NBC's Saturday Night Live. Please welcome Mr. Lorne Michaels.
Lorne Michaels built Saturday Night Live into the biggest comedy stage in America. He discovered legends and turned nobodies into stars. But there was one name he could never say without guilt: Chris Farley. Behind the laughs and the wild sketches, something darker was happening. Oxygen tanks hidden backstage, private meetings that felt like funerals. A final question asked at an after-party that still haunts him. Lorne had seen this before. He watched John Belushi die at 33. He swore it would never happen again. But Chris Farley also died at 33. What really happened inside Studio 8H? Lorne Michaels was born in Toronto on November 17, 1944, and his early life moved slowly and quietly through small grocery aisles that his parents ran. He grew up in a Jewish family that worked hard, and that steady rhythm shaped the way he saw the world. He found humor early, almost like it was a language that made everything easier to understand. At Harvard Collegiate Institute, he discovered he could write and make people laugh, and that spark carried him into the 1960s when he left for the United States to chase something bigger. He wrote for small comedy shows, trying to find his place, and each step pulled him closer to NBC. In 1975, everything suddenly came together when he created Saturday Night Live. It changed late-night television, and it changed him too. His working-class background helped him see humor in ordinary moments, and that view made him a sharp judge of talent. His path from Toronto's quiet shops to the center of American comedy kept growing because he never stopped studying what made people laugh, and the climb shaped every sketch and every choice he later made. Far from that world, Chris Farley began his life in Madison, Wisconsin, on February 15, 1964. His family was devout Irish Catholic, rooted in calm routines and Midwest values. His father ran an oil company, his mother stayed home, and their house in Maple Bluff felt safe and warm. Chris was the third of 5 children, and the only movies allowed at home were comedies. Those films lit something inside him that he never let go of. His father always pushed humility and kindness, teaching his kids to avoid showing off. Yet Chris kept discovering that laughter was its own kind of kindness. Summers at Red Arrow Camp opened new doors. On camp stages, he performed in little plays, hearing the sound of applause roll over him for the first time. That early spark made him feel like he could lift people just by being himself. By the time he reached Edgewood High School in 1982, he carried that spark everywhere he went. He used jokes to protect himself from bullies and to make friends, and little by little he became the class clown everyone looked forward to seeing. He acted out skits in the cafeteria and mimicked teachers in a way that left the room shaking with laughter. He played football, wrestled, and tried track, but comedy stayed closest to his heart. Even the long school bus rides from Maple Bluff became little stages for him. His yearbook listed him in clubs and councils, but the real memory people kept was how he turned normal days into stories his classmates would never forget. One moment from childhood stayed with him forever. When he was 8, he dressed as Santa for a Christmas pageant. He tripped on stage and fell, but instead of crying, he twisted the fall into a ridiculous routine that made the whole audience roar. That tiny moment showed what he would later become. He kept using his body as his main tool for comedy, throwing himself into school skits and camp shows with wild energy. Even at the family lake house, he entertained people during water skiing trips, mixing fun with the early signs of struggles he didn't yet understand. Those experiences slowly shaped the bold physical style everyone would one day recognize on screen. Through all this, he kept looking up to John Belushi. His older brother Tom sneaked SNL episodes into the house, and when Chris first saw Belushi's wild energy, he felt like he had found his mirror. He wanted to move like him, shout like him, commit the way Belushi committed. Belushi died in 1982 at only 33, but the influence stayed. Chris followed the same road, joining Second City in Chicago, and then stepping onto the SNL stage in 1990, carrying Belushi's spirit into his own career. Before he reached Chicago, college brought its own chaos. In 1982, during his freshman year at Marquette, he joined the rugby team. The team loved pranks, And one streaking stunt went too far. He was caught and faced serious punishment, enough to delay his graduation by a whole semester. He had pulled other stunts too, like setting off a smoke bomb that accidentally caused a small fire. Still, he returned on his own to take responsibility, and the school let him stay. Those years were wild and messy, and they helped define the tone of who he would become. The rugby team liked to say they might lose a game, but would win the party, and Chris fit into that world easily. In 1984, he found another stage in a sketch called Living Jesus. He smashed through fake walls, leapt off platforms, and performed with such reckless joy that the crowd rose to its feet. He almost injured himself during the performance, but the applause felt worth it. Critics noticed him. Students talked about him. The sketch became a small legend on campus, and people began to see that he was building something bigger than a hobby. Pain and chaos rolled together into laughter, and Chris made it look effortless. Back in the dorms, his appetite and humor mixed into strange stories. One night, he bet that he could eat 20 McDonald's burgers in one sitting. He won, then threw up immediately while shouting lines from Animal House. His roommate, Matt Foley, who later became the name of Chris's famous SNL character, said Chris was always turning ordinary moments into comedy. The burger story became campus lore and showed how far Chris would push himself just to make people laugh. When he reached Chicago in 1986, the grind sharpened him. He trained at Improv Olympic under Del Close, the man who shaped generations of comedians. His first gig involved leaping through a paper hoop as a human cannonball. He showed up with the same fearless energy he once used in camp shows and high school cafeterias. Night after night, he worked, studying, performing, and trying to find the rhythm that made an audience explode. By 1988, he joined the Second City Touring Company, and his reputation grew with every performance. He was unpredictable, powerful, and completely committed. In Milwaukee in 1988, he took that commitment to another level. During one sketch, he leapt so hard that his pants split open in front of the entire crowd. He didn't stop. He kept going, performing the rest of the scene without a shred of shame. The audience roared. The moment became one of the stories that followed him everywhere, proof that he would give everything he had for a laugh. In 1989, he debuted Patty O'Toole, a loud and messy character who devoured prop food on stage. The crowd loved it. Chris stuffed his mouth full every night, pushing the character as far as he could. Sometimes he even practiced with real snacks to get himself in the right mood. The character became one of his early favorites and opened the way for bigger opportunities on SNL. His fearlessness kept pulling people in. That same year, Lorne Michaels began watching him. When Farley auditioned for SNL, he didn't hold back. He charged at the scout, wrapped him in a giant bear hug, and shouted, "Hire me or die." The room never forgot that moment. It was raw and wild, and it worked. Lorne brought him to New York, and the audition story became a permanent piece of SNL history. But beneath the laughs, cracks began to show. Farley made $300 a week at Second City, and the money disappeared almost as fast as it came. Nights blurred together. He drank heavily, partied hard, and often woke up in places he didn't recognize. Friends noticed the blackouts. They noticed the way he pushed himself to extremes. Those early habits became shadows that followed him into fame. Chris Farley stepped into SNL in September 1990. With a rush of wild energy that seemed to lift the whole place the moment he arrived. Adam Sandler and David Spade came in at the same time, and together they formed a trio that felt fresh and a little dangerous. Their first big moment came right away in the opening episode of season 16. They dressed up as the Gap Girls and played three dramatic store employees who mocked customers, complained about their jobs, and tore up the set while dancing and screaming. The crowd loved it, and Farley stood out without even trying. His wild dancing and fearless body movements pulled every eye to him and set the tone for the next 5 years. The Gap Girls sketches kept coming for 3 seasons and appeared in 6 episodes, slowly turning into a favorite that people mentioned whenever they talked about workplace humor. Farley could flip a scene inside out with just one move, and from that first night, it felt like SNL had stepped into a new phase. But the moment that sealed his early legacy came a little later that same year when he created Matt Foley, the motivational speaker. It first showed up on November 17, 1990, and it hit like a bolt. Bob Odenkirk wrote the sketch based on a real friend named Matt Foley. who later became a priest. But Farley pushed the character even further by mixing in the voice of his high school football coach and the sharp tone of his father when he got angry. When he yelled that famous line about living in a van by the river, something clicked. People repeated it everywhere. Odenkirk had heard Farley do a similar voice back in their Second City days and knew it could be magic if done at the right moment. Farley ended up performing the character 8 times on the show, though things shifted a bit after Odenkirk left SNL in 1991. Still, the spark was there each time Farley charged forward and sent tables flying. Even with all the excitement, trouble showed up early. In just his 3rd week on the show, he appeared on Weekend Update while clearly drunk, stumbling over lines he was supposed to deliver clean. Lorne Michaels pulled him aside afterward for a private talk that people in the cast compared to being sent to the principal's office. It felt serious. Writers noticed the drinking more often, too. Tom Davis remembered seeing him bar hopping near the studio and trying to tell him to slow down, but Farley brushed it off and sometimes even staggered back into the office still drunk, slapping himself to make the younger writers laugh. The pressure to stay funny, stay liked, and stay on the show pushed him into habits that began to shadow everything he did. Then came the Chippendales sketch, which aired on October 27, 1990. Patrick Swayze stood beside him, all muscle and polish, and Farley played Barney, the heavy-set but passionate dancer trying to win the job. The judges gave Barney high marks, but the joke rested on him being rejected for his body. Nealon's character even said Barney was flat and flabby before giving the job to Swayze's character. The audience exploded with laughter, and the sketch became a classic, the kind people passed around on tape years later. That attention got Farley signed with a major talent agency, but behind the scenes, he felt hurt. He knew the sketch made fun of his weight, and even though he went along with it, part of him felt exposed in a way that stung. By 1993, people also saw another side of him in The Chris Farley Show. He played a nervous host who looked like he could fall apart at any second. When Paul McCartney appeared in the February 13, 1993 episode, Farley shook so much that viewers wondered if the nervousness was real. He asked questions that made no sense, and even mixed up Beatles lyrics, which made McCartney laugh and respond gently, while Farley panicked through the moment. Another episode with Martin Scorsese showed him punching a wall out of pure anxiety. These sketches revealed something deep inside him. He desperately wanted approval, and often could not believe he deserved to be around legends like that. His Matt Foley character evolved too. In May 1993, it had already blown up, but in the 1994 version, Farley pushed it to another level. During one live performance, he smashed a coffee table on his head and actually drew blood as the crowd screamed with excitement. Lorne Michaels later edited the taped version to remove the roughest parts because it was too violent for air. The character came from real life, but Farley's version was wild, sloppy, and hilarious, full of shouting and clumsy movements. He lived inside the joke so deeply that people forgot he was acting. They only saw the raw force of a man who would break anything for a laugh. The Gap Girls sketches kept returning too, stretching across 12 episodes. Farley played Craig, a store manager who ripped clothes off models and stomped across the fake retail floor with reckless delight. He tore through 5 matching outfits in a single take because he performed with no hesitation. The series landed well with viewers, but the physical effort almost swallowed him. Farley admitted he would do anything for a laugh, and the sketches proved it again and again. By the 1994 and 1995 seasons, his work was reaching every corner of SNL, yet his private life was slipping. He skipped the Emmys party even after a nomination, and hid alone in his hotel room while he binged and avoided the spotlight. He felt out of place in Hollywood and often sank into a cycle of self-doubt that made him retreat instead of celebrating his own success. The addiction issues were tightening around his life in ways that hurt everything he touched. When he moved into films, people saw the same commitment and the same danger. In Tommy Boy, the sausage scene became legendary because he kept eating real sausages long after the joke required it. Reports say he ate around 15 sausages in one take and got sick between shots, yet refused to stop because he wanted the director to be happy. The film made $32 million worldwide and turned Farley into a movie star. But even that moment showed how much he pushed himself past what most people would consider safe. In Black Sheep, he went even further. He jumped off a real 20-foot cliff into water and insisted on doing it again and again to get the best take. The director later said it was both impressive and terrifying because Farley ignored limits whenever he felt the laugh was worth it. The film made $37 million and cemented the idea that Farley's body was as much a part of the performance as his voice. For Beverly Hills Ninja, he trained in martial arts for 6 months, sometimes practicing 3 hours a day. He hurt his knee in the first week of shooting, yet completed almost 80% of the stunts while limping. He refused to slow down, even though the injury could have sidelined him. The movie earned $34 million and showed how far he would push himself to make a scene work. Even smaller roles had stories behind them. His cameo in Airheads became a favorite, and his connection to Shrek surprised everyone. In 1997, he recorded nearly 20 pages of dialogue for the role of Shrek and brought a whole new energy to the character. But the same problems followed him. Missed sessions and late arrivals made the studio nervous. DreamWorks let him go and handed the character to Mike Myers. People who heard Farley's recordings said they were hilarious and unique, but the world never got to see his version. At the height of his fame, he was earning around $6 million a year, yet his spending matched the chaos inside him. Stories from Las Vegas describe weekends where he burned through $1.5 million on penthouses, parties, and endless nights surrounded by strangers who loved the wild side of him. He tipped thousands without thinking and filled suites with friends until morning. The money came fast and left even faster, showing the pressure he carried and the way fame wrapped itself around him. Chris Farley stepped into rehab for the first time in 1992 after a blackout on SNL that scared everyone around him, and from that moment, the struggle only grew heavier. One stay turned into many, and by 1997, he had gone through at least 17 different rehab centers across the country. One of the darkest moments happened in Alabama in 1995, where he was sent to a tough love facility that believed brutal methods would break his habits. They chained him to a bed and force-fed him meals to interrupt his binge cycles. He even escaped once, only to be caught and dragged back. Each time he left a program, there was hope, and each time he relapsed, that hope thinned. Friends said he always walked in determined and left desperate to stay clean, but the pattern never changed. Days or weeks later, he slipped again, and the cycle pulled everyone into its heartbreak. Every attempt felt like a last try. Every relapse felt like losing him all over again. Jay Moore watched that cycle up close and later said it played out the same almost every time. If Farley tried to quit drugs, he drowned himself in drinking and food. If he used cocaine, he avoided food and poured vodka over the edge until his body shook. His outbursts turned violent. Moore remembered nights when Farley tore through hotel rooms, naked and wild, punching holes through walls. It wasn't a rare sight. It was a rhythm that followed him after SNL ended, a slow collapse in front of people who couldn't pull him back. Each time he tried to stop, he talked about doing better, but the pull of the high always found him first. His mind and body were pushed past their limits, while his friends stood by, helpless. During the filming of Almost Heroes, the decline showed in every corner of the set. Most of it was filmed in 1996, but delays and studio chaos kept it from coming out until May 1998. Farley missed around 20 shoot days because he disappeared into binges, leaving the cast and crew waiting for him to reappear. Matthew Perry tried to keep everything steady, even as Farley's health slid deeper into danger. One of the eeriest moments came when Farley improvised his character's dying scene. Some thought he seemed to be talking about himself without realizing it. The movie was later chopped and reshaped by the studio, leaving a shaky farewell that carried a strange chill for everyone who knew how close he already was to the end. Farley's family never stopped trying to save him. In 1996, his brother Tom locked him in the basement and played Alcoholics Anonymous tapes non-stop, hoping something would finally stick. Farley climbed out a window to escape, leaving his brother stunned and terrified. These interventions turned into emotional battles, sometimes physical struggles, as they tried to hold him still long enough to help him. Farley understood their fear because he shared it, yet he couldn't break free. Every time they tried, they were met with the same realization that love alone was not enough to pull him out. Lorne Michaels saw the danger early. In 1994, after Farley showed up to SNL visibly impaired, Michaels banned him from the show for the first time and sent him to Promises in California. The ban lasted 3 weeks, and Farley returned looking ready. But the relapse came soon after. The pattern repeated itself for years. Whenever the addiction came back, Michaels removed him from the show and tried to shock him into sobriety. The last time Farley came back was October 1997, 2 months before he died. Michaels' effort was sincere and constant, but even he could not outrun what was happening. Belushi's death had changed Michaels years earlier. After losing him in 1982, he told himself he would never watch another star slip away without intervention. When Farley joined SNL in 1990, Michaels saw the same danger and tried to get ahead of it. He called Farley into his office more than 50 times, having long, raw conversations about drugs and drinking. It felt like being sent to the principal, a mix of shame and fear, and Farley always promised to do better. Michaels suspended him again and again, believing structure might save him, but no structure could hold him long enough. Between 1993 and 1995, these bans became a routine part of Farley's SNL life. Writers later said he walked into Michaels' office both excited and terrified, knowing what was coming. The show became a reward he had to earn by staying clean. Relapse meant removal, and everyone watched that pattern repeat until it felt endless. By October 1997, things had become desperate. Farley's manager, Mark Guritz, begged Michaels for a hosting spot, hoping the routine of SNL would give Farley something to hold on to. Michaels agreed, even though he knew how fragile Farley was. It felt like one more chance to pull him upright. Farley returned to Studio 8H, trying to smile and trying to push forward. But only weeks later, on December 18, 1997, he was gone. The hosting slot became a farewell he didn't know he was giving. During that episode, the atmosphere backstage was tense. Michaels quietly arranged for Chris Rock to be on standby in case Farley collapsed before airtime. Oxygen tanks were placed behind the curtain because everyone knew how weak he was. Farley stumbled through rehearsals, losing breath, losing rhythm, losing strength. The show pressed on anyway. Farley had tried another round of sobriety in 1995 at the Alabama rehab, but the moment he left, he stumbled back into the same pattern. This happened again and again. Sobriety for a few days, then a collapse, then another stay, then another relapse. It wore down everyone who loved him. The centers tried everything. Nothing held. When he hosted on October 25, 1997, the show opened with a meta sketch where cast members stood around debating if someone struggling should even be allowed to host. It cut close to the truth, and some said it felt cruel even then. Chevy Chase played his sponsor in the sketch, a hint at how the real world kept bleeding into the comedy. The sketch felt like everyone was pretending to laugh while something inside them twisted. Farley's monologue that night was difficult to watch. He arrived out of breath, sweating through his suit, trying to joke about his weight and unreliability. His voice cracked as he gasped through lines. The room felt uneasy as laughter mixed with worry. He tried doing his classic arm move from the Matt Foley sketches, but it looked more like a man trying to stay standing. It was a moment people never forgot. Later, during the Matt Foley sketch, he needed oxygen between takes. Props broke around him because he couldn't control his energy. Cast members stretched scenes to give him room to recover. Norm Macdonald joked on camera that the audience should laugh because it helped Farley rest. The line was funny, but the truth behind it was painful. Everyone could see how much he was losing. 2 months later, he was gone. At the after party, Farley found Lorne Michaels and asked if he had been funny. It was the last thing he ever said to him. The question carried years of fear and longing, and Michaels later said he tried everything he could, but it still haunts him. Farley's final days were heavy. From December 14th to 18, he moved through a 4-day binge across Chicago. He was seen at Karma Club and later at the Second City anniversary celebration, trying to stay upright in front of people he admired. He partied with Heidi Hauser, who left his apartment after a fight. Farley tried to follow her and collapsed. On December 18th, his brother John found him in the doorway of his apartment, wearing only pajama bottoms. The autopsy revealed he died from a speedball, the same deadly mix that took Belushi at age 33. Farley was also 33. Other health issues made the collapse even faster. John had to identify the body, a memory he carries with him forever. Years later, in 2015, demo tapes surfaced, revealing Farley had recorded most of the original Shrek dialogue before he died. His version was kinder, more fragile, more human. Hearing his voice brought back the shock of how much was lost. It felt like a small window into the future he never got to live. A reminder of a talent that burned too fast and too bright, leaving everyone wishing he had stayed long enough to see the joy he gave to the world.